Welcome everyone to Sunshine Ladies Unraveling Tales, where a group of bookish friends take you on our reading journey. We bring you TBR recommendations, exclusive bookish interviews, and event shenanigans. I'm Carrie, and on today's episode, I'm joined by Heather, Nikki, Rebecca, Reed, and Steph. Join us as we chat with the legend herself, author Penn Cole. It's so nice to meet you, Penn. Thank you so much for taking time for us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
For anyone that's not familiar with you or the Kindred's Curse saga yet, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into writing.
Well, so I am a Romantasy author. My debut series is the Kindred's Curse Saga, beginning with book 1, Spark of the Ever Flame. Yes, right there in the corner. I got started. So I've been writing my whole life. I mean, truly, since I was like a little girl, I knew that I wanted to write books. I, used to fill up notebooks with little stories that were probably terrible. It's what all of my degrees, my university degrees were all in. It was just something, a dream I always knew I wanted to pursue. But I didn't actually pursue it for a very long time. I had some previous careers. I worked in the wedding industry. I was a small business coach. I was an attorney for a while. And during the pandemic, I lost my job because I moved to where I live now, which is Paris, France. I'm from Texas. As part of that move, I had to leave my job. I couldn't find another job because global pandemic, no one was hiring. And my very sweet husband said, you've always wanted to write a book, like, do it. So I said, okay.
I love that.
And so I wrote my first, not the first thing I wrote, but the first thing I published for sure, and self-published it in June of 2023, which feels like yesterday, but was more than 2 years ago. It's wild. And I self-published the first 3 books in my series. And then I got picked up by Simon & Schuster last year, and they have been re-releasing the books in a trad pub version. And now we are all just waiting on that book 4.
That moved so fast for you.
It was wild, a wild experience for sure.
So I just want to throw a friendly reminder out there to everyone watching or listening that this is rated R. You never know what's going to come out of our mouths on this podcast. And also, since we are discussing the Kindred's Curse saga, that there may be potential spoilers, nothing too crazy, but just general world spoilers for all 3 books. So that said, did you ever think that your first series as an author would become as popular as it did, or as quickly? And how have you handled that quick rise to stardom within the bookish community?
Poorly. This is actually something I've been thinking about all day today. It's been on my mind because of some like specific stuff happening in the book world today. But I definitely never thought anybody would really read my first few books. It's pretty typical in self-publishing that you usually have to get like 8 or 9 books out there. You usually have to complete a couple of series before people really start to take you seriously and like follow what you're doing. And also just for you to find your voice and learn all of the ropes of the industry. And so most authors I know of that started self-publish and kind of blew up, they did it usually on like their 3rd series that they wrote. So I very much went into this thinking like, okay, nobody's going to read any of these books. Like this will be my first series where I can work out all the kinks and like figure things out. And definitely no one was more surprised than me when it like a few more people than I thought read the book.
And your husband said, I knew you could do it all along.
We're coming up on 2 million copies sold almost, which is wild.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And is that just Spark, or that's all across the board?
That's the series.
That's
I think Spark is coming up though in a few months, probably on 1 million copies sold just of Spark, which is like
that's so
mental to think about.
So what has your husband's reaction been?
Oh, he loves it.
Yeah.
He's like, thank goodness I told you to write this book, huh?
Yeah.
He's so happy.
We love a humble significant
Oh my
other.
God.
He gets bragging rights. Yeah.
Yeah. He's very supportive though. He's my alpha reader. So he's the first person to read anything. And he loves the characters. He's the biggest Henry hater that exists. He's like, Luther is his bro. He definitely has picked sides in that triangle, that's for sure. And yeah, he's great. He's very supportive and has definitely been my biggest cheerleader. But it was a wild ride, and I very frequently say, even though I'm grateful for it happening, I don't know that I would wish this on anyone else at their first series blowing up, because there are a lot of mistakes you make and things you have to learn and just all kinds of things that go wrong when you're publishing your first series, especially self-publishing, when you have nobody really around you to tell you, oh, maybe don't do that. And having to make all of those mistakes in such a spotlight has been like not the most fun thing in the world.
Right.
You know, I'm very grateful for sure for the success and for, you know, having so many readers that have really supported the series.
You're handling everything with grace and
Thank you.
humility.
Along with, you know, the wonderful success you've put on the first ever Flame Ball, which is coming up soon. And as much as we wish we could go, you know, we definitely wish we could all just hop on a plane, go, let's go, and fly over there. For sure.
I actually don't know what is a secret versus what has been announced. So I'm scared to say anything because we have a lot of like little secrets planned and just fun things that they're doing to make this a positive experience for everybody. I was very hesitant to agree at the beginning because right around the time that they came to me with this idea, there were these like ACOTAR balls that were happening where like the character who was playing Reese was like groping women or, you know, being inappropriate. And I was terrified because when you put, you know, your story into somebody else's hands, it's scary. But when I had a conversation with Mountains and Magic, who are the people putting on the ball, we were just so aligned with vision. And you know, it's really important to me that anything I do have like a charitable aspect. And they were already there, like they already had plans to do that. And they were really focused on making it a good experience for attendees and making it valuable for them. They have continued to keep those values throughout the entire experience. So it's been very anxiety inducing to like hand off my IP to somebody. But this team, I trust them completely. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to meet readers. I love in-person reader events. I'm also really excited to have an event where we actually can hang out, because normally at signings, I want to sit and talk to everybody for 40 minutes, but there's a line and, you know, you're trying to get through everybody. So I'm just really happy to be at this place where if people want to come up and chat with me, they can, and there's not a time limit. We, you know, can chat, we can go dance on the dance floor, have a drink. I'm pumped about that. Some quality time.
Yeah, we really wish you could be there.
So bad.
Honestly, I remember last year I went to Romantasy BookCon and I stood in line and I met you, and I was probably one of my most memorable signings, honestly, because it was just so fun to just have that conversation and chat. And at the end, when you kind of were like, you signed my book too. And I was like, oh, yeah. We all were putting like funny quotes in there. And I was with a friend. She was like, we got to put a funny quote. And she was, I got to put Henri in there. And I was like, oh, no.
It was so fun. That was my first tour. And I came home and I sat with that book and I just like sobbed on my couch, flipping through it and looking at all the things people wrote, funny things and the quotes they pulled out. It was such a fun experience.
It's such a good idea. I love that idea.
It was really good.
Speaking to the charitable aspects of the ball, what are some of your favorite causes and charities that you like to support, and why do you like them so much?
So in my licensing program, whenever I have a vendor or an event that is licensed through me, typically authors take a percentage as a kind of licensing fee. But we ask that all of our licensed vendors donate 10% of the proceeds to one of 5 causes that are both important to me personally, but also reflected in the series, you know, kind of parallels of stuff that characters in my world are dealing with.
Brilliant.
I'm going to see if I can remember all 5 of them. So one of them is Doctors Without Borders, which I think is pretty well known. One of them is the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, which provides food and medical care to children in Gaza and the surrounding area. One is a nonprofit that I personally have worked with called Buried Alive, and they seek out clemency and pardons for first-time nonviolent drug offenders. There are actually thousands of people in federal prison serving life sentences for nonviolent drug offenses, some of which are no longer illegal because of legalization and decriminalization. And I find that to be unbelievable that we're throwing people's lives away over something that now you can go become a millionaire selling, open a dispensary. And we have people sitting in jail for that same thing. So I think that's a really important program. And Brittany, who runs it, has gotten like over 100 people freed from these life sentences, which is just unbelievable.
Awesome.
I have the Global Fund for Women, which supports community-led movements by women. So rather than having somebody come into an area they're not familiar with, they fund people who are in these communities and who know them best and give them grants to help solve problems, usually problems focused mostly on women and children. So I love that that's like community-led and really supports the women that are on the ground there. And I think the last one is RACES, which is, I can't remember what the acronym is, but it basically assists refugees and immigrants, mostly in the southern US. They're really active in Texas, which is where I'm from, helping them with legal fees and just dealing with the immigration system generally, which is obviously something that's very, very front of mind right now.
That's
Amazing.
incredible.
Five fantastic organizations. And it's so fun to watch people inquire with us about licensing and then tell them, okay, well, you have to pick one of these. And they get so excited, about having their stuff benefit a really good cause. So it's fun, readers get some cute merch and we get to do a good deed and these causes get much needed funding.
I love that so much.
It's also like such a wide range of different causes. You're dipping a little bit into like women and children, and then
the war and immigrants,
doctors without borders, and that's like all different areas. It's not just like here, So it's really amazing to kind of just spread it out all over.
Yeah, definitely.
We love an activist queen.
So, Penn, you have always been so encouraging of other authors and artists out there as well. So why is it important to you to support other creators?
Oof, my goodness. I could talk about this for hours. For so many reasons. Number one, it's such a lonely career. I spend so much of my time just sitting alone in an office with just my laptop, writing words on my own. If you don't have a really solid group of peers around you, which is not given to you, right? It's something that has to be sought out and built. Then I have experienced firsthand how dark and lonely and sad and isolating this industry can become. So I think it's just so important that all of us not just surround ourselves with people, but be someone who can, be sought out and someone who can be approachable for authors to come to me and say, hey, I know that you've done this before. Can you help me? Or, I'm looking to publish my first book. What advice do you have? I think it's so important to pay it forward and keep bringing on, new authors, keep helping them grow. Is only a rising tide lifts all ships, right? And so the better that books get, the more books that get successful, the more people are coming into these genres, especially into romantasy. And that's good for all of us. The more people that love romantasy, we all benefit from that because it's not like you're going to read just one book, You read a book, you're in your book hangover, like I will never love again because nothing can ever beat this book. And then somebody's like, let me give you my list. And, you find books that you love just as much or even more. So there's just no reason to be competitive or to not help each other because it benefits us all.
Aside from being a queen of activism, you're also the queen of a delicious slow burn.
Delicious.
What are some of She's over here like What are some of your favorite tropes to read versus write?
Romantasy is the genre of my heart, and so many of my favorite books are romantasies. So that is for sure my favorite. I also love a good rom-com. I love to laugh when I'm reading, but also sob hysterically because my heart is broken. So if an author can make me do both of those, I am sold. I'm a fan for life. It will surprise no one that I love a slow burn. I wrote a slow burn because I couldn't find books that were slow enough for me. I wanted them even slower. And so I said, okay, well, I can't find one, so I'm going to write one.
You did.
I
You
think.
wrote one.
Thank you. Thank you. I think now it's catching on a bit more and people are really digging the slow burn. So we're seeing more of them published, which I personally am super happy about. What else do I love? I love a grumpy MMC. Like, I just love it when they're cranky, not mean necessarily, but just like very wet cat energy, as Lost Books of Jess would say. I love that when they're just cranky and in a bad mood all the time, and you have this FMC come and just explode their life. It's the best.
Wet cat energy. I love that.
It's so accurate.
Watching, like, here's my sunshine. You need to be happy, and he's like, no.
Exactly.
You've been through the transition moving from indie publishing to traditional. What was that whole process like?
I love my publisher. They're wonderful. I'm super happy to be working with them. I feel incredibly lucky to have found them in the publishing industry because they are very forward thinking. They understand indie authors. They have a lot of them on their roster. And so they kind of get it a lot more than other publishers do. I will say generally, outside of my own personal experience, trad pub, which if you're listening and you don't really know the difference, self-publishing is what it sounds like. It's when you do everything yourself. If you have editors, you hired them yourself. You know, either design your own cover or you hired a designer to do it. No one is helping you. You are completely on your own, and you publish your book by uploading it to Amazon or wherever else and clicking submit. Trad pub, or traditional publishing, is where you will work with a publisher such as, you know, Penguin Random House or Simon & Schuster, Macmillan, you know, these big names that you know of. And typically, if you go into a bookstore, every book usually in that store will be trad pub. It's very, very hard for indie authors to get into bookstores. There's a few every now and then that are huge successes, but I would say 99.999% of the books in any given bookstore are going to be trad pub. That's really a gate kept side of the industry. So as an indie author, you're really focused on ebook and things like Kindle Unlimited because you're just not realistically going to sell a lot of print books. So people might buy them as a shelf copy or whatever, but really you're focusing on ebook and sometimes audiobook. And then trad pub is the opposite. It's very print focused. It's very focused on bookstores and, you know, special editions and sprayed edges and all of that fancy stuff that we love. So that aspect of it was certainly a shift. I'm a big believer that artists of all kinds should hold on to their rights as much as they realistically can. It's not uncommon in publishing for the author to be the person making the least on a sale of a book. Typical publishing royalties can be 5 to 10%. So, you know, we're talking very small margins for the author, the person who wrote the book.
Wow.
Right.
And it can be, you know, there are circumstances where I see people making literally 10 cents on the sale of a book in some situations. So it's rough. I think that the author should be the person making the most from the book. And the only real way to do that is self-publishing. So I'm a huge fan of indie publishing. I will always be a huge fan of indie publishing. I think it is the best way for authors to get their book out there, but still hold on to the lion's share of the profits. It's certainly very difficult because you are doing everything yourself. It can be kind of expensive, but having control of your books and your career and your destiny as an author is worth more than I think people realize. And most people I know who have done a stint in trad or are like dipping their toes in the trad water are now like running back to self-publishing or want to at least. So there's this perception that trad is like more prestigious or, you know, a step up from indie publishing. And I really think we need to dispel that because I think that artists holding onto their rights and becoming successful, having that ownership is where we need to be moving toward and not away from that. So I'm a big indie lover and always will be.
Do you think some of the appeal comes from the traffic from the trad publishing world, just the eyes that are on it, of all of that marketing through the trad publishing maybe?
Yes, I think that's certainly the perception of it. I don't know if that's reality. It's like selling your rights and then also not necessarily getting the benefits of it. I am obviously biased, but I think the way that I did it is really the best for artists. an author's, which is to build up your following first as an indie and, work out the kinks, figure out your voice, like build an audience of people and learn who you are as an author. And then when you have an established readership and you have some books with good sales record, then you can go into TradPub with leverage and you can say, listen, I've sold X thousand books. I have, X thousand followers and this many people on my mailing list. I'm not a brand new author. I want a deal where I get to keep some of my rights or I get better royalties or, whatever. Like my deal is print only. So I only sold them print. I kept my ebook. I know other people who have done what's called a joint venture where they split the profits and the costs 50-50. So basically however much the book sells for, you just divide everything in half, the printing cost, all of the profit. And so there are more creative structures that benefit authors, but you usually can't get access to those unless you come into the industry with some leverage. And I think that is an underutilized strategy that is really good for authors, especially newer authors, because going in as a brand new author into TradPub, which can be so predatory and so exploitative, I see a lot of bad experiences. A lot of people whose just spirits get broken and, their stories don't get shown to anyone, which is heartbreaking. So I would definitely encourage anybody who is thinking about publishing a book, especially if it's your first book, to research them both. It depends on your own preferences. What's right for me may not be right for you. But at least give self-publishing a really serious thing and don't go into it thinking that TradPub is like better because it's just a business decision. It just is a trade-off in who gets more money, essentially.
Okay. Wow, that's so complex. Yeah.
Yes.
Starts with people like you who are willing to talk about those little nuances to really bring the light and show other aspiring authors kind of, what they should consider.
Yeah. Everything in publishing is a decision. And the more thought that you can put into each decision, researching them, talking to people who have taken path A, path B, and then cherry picking a path that's best for you, that is how you become successful. Not copying somebody else, not just saying, oh, I'll figure it out as I go along, but really trying to be intentional and thoughtful with every decision you make because the information is out there and there are so many authors that are so willing to be very generous with their time and knowledge, but you've got to do just that little step of seeking it out and talking to people. And it can save you from a lot of bad mistakes.
Well, switching from that discussion to what are some of the absolute best memories that you've had while touring around and other author events, and maybe one of your favorite events that you've been to?
My first tour was obviously special for being my first. It was so surreal because I just for years at that point had been sitting in my house just by myself working on my little books. And so that was the first time, of course I talked to people on social media, but it was kind of the first time that I saw in person in front of my eyes in a way that I couldn't easily dismiss that, oh, there are people who like these books. I actually do have readers that like the books. No matter how many people you talk to online, you can convince yourself, okay, well, there was like one or two people, but like most people don't like my books. And so to go to an event and see people wearing merch or standing in line or, dressing up in cosplay as the characters is so surreal. And it's the coolest experience ever. It just makes me so happy to think about. I really have loved when people come up to me in a line and they say, this book helped me get through the loss of a family member or a really bad breakup or a mental health crisis that I was going through. And to know that the book, obviously I want it to be a fun painting experience, but to know that it was something deeper for people is really super, super special because that's why I write. You want it to be a part of somebody in that special way. And so when I meet people that the books were that for them, I mean, that is everything to me. It's why I'm doing this.
Oh, I love it.
You see the lovely, beautiful covers. Just recently, you just came out with the new sprayed edges, the paperbacks. How much influence do you have in how the design turns out, like the cover or even the sprayed edges? And then if you can, when heat is coming out of paperback.
It's different for every author. So my experience is not necessarily somebody else's, but I had pretty close to full control over my covers. We agreed to keep the spirit of the original covers and just, I don't know, give it a little, like, turn it up a notch. So we tried a lot of different, mostly text treatments. We kind of kept the visual, the art side of it the same. I think we ended up changing the image inside of the cameo on Spark, but same vibe. And we really just played with the text treatment to make it pop on shelves a bit more. And I think we did that, which I'm really excited about. When I first designed them, I definitely had delusions of grandeur. And I thought, I know I'm an indie author. I know nobody's ever going to read this book, but if it blew up, if it was on bookstore shelves, what would look good on bookstore shelves?
Yeah,
right.
And so I kind of designed it with that in mind, knowing that Romantasy is just a lot of black and a lot of dark covers with kind of dark reds and grays and those sort of attributes. So I said, let's go with white and orange, complete opposite from what you typically see, because I wanted it to really stand out on a shelf, especially in a Romantasy section. And I think it does that really well.
Yes,
I agree.
So it's fun to now see it in bookstores with this cover and have that be kind of the fulfillment of the original plan, which I loved. The sprayed edges, we went through a couple rounds of revisions on those. So I had control of those as well. It is coming. We will actually be announcing it very soon. So yeah, I think in about a week or so.
Oh yeah, that's very
announcing
soon.
it. I don't know. It won't be out in a week or so, but we will be announcing the release date. I know the release date. I don't want to say, but it's soon-ish. It's this year for sure.
Love that.
We don't want to get you in trouble, so.
Okay, so we talked about how beautiful your books are, but I would like to dive into your brilliant mind with the Kindred's Curse saga. Can you walk us through the design process of your world building of Amarion?
I'm from Texas, right? And Texas is massive. You can drive for probably 24 hours. No, you can actually. I've done it and still be in Texas. I once drove with some friends on a road trip to California, and day one was just Texas. And day two was every other state. It was wild. And even though, yes, there are so many different communities and cultures within Texas, and, I don't want to erase that. But within the US, for the most part, we have a somewhat homogenous culture. You can go anywhere, understand the language. It's going to be recognizable architecture. We have the same government, et cetera, et cetera. So when I moved to Europe and I can drive, 2 hours in any direction and be a different language, different architecture, different government, different religions, different food, like everything is fully different. But yet they're all packed in this very tiny space, and there's free movement, between these countries. So even given their close proximity, they have managed to retain each of their individual cultures. And I was so impressed by that. I love that over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, they have managed to keep distinct identities despite being so close. And so that was kind of the inspiration behind my world, where you have the little atoll and you have the 9 realms, and they're very close to each other. And they have this shared identity of, the continent of Amarion. But each of the realms is very distinct, and they have different values, different ways of life. They're all so different. And so I really loved the idea of this world that you could kind of have that and have a continental identity, but you're really tied to the realm that you're from, but you still have to work together all the time, and people are traveling between them all the time. So that was the base of the world building. I don't want to give away what happens at the end of book 1 for anyone who's listening and hasn't read it, but if you have read the books and you know what happens at the very, very end of book 1, that was the first scene that I envisioned. And I said, okay, I see this happening to a person with these characteristics. I'm trying to be so vague. And I'm curious about the fallout of that. So actually, when I was originally envisioning the books, Glow, everything that happens in book 2, Glow, was what I thought book 1 was going to be. And that was the core story that I thought I would start telling. And it wasn't until much later in the process, actually, after I started drafting, that I said, no, we need to go back and I need to understand the FMC and the world that she comes from a lot better, and really be in her head, walking through the streets that she's walked through, talking to the people she's known her whole life, and getting to know that side of her before we start exploring elsewhere in the world. So that was kind of how the spark, no pun intended, began.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful
Love it.
choice. I love a good
Yes.
backstory.
I love it.
Yeah, one's kind of a giant prequel, which is like the thing you're not supposed to do, but oh well, whatever, it's fine.
No, it
Oh,
works.
no,
It
it
totally
works so
works.
well. Yes. Love
Yeah.
Spark so much.
Thank you.
So, looking at the politics within Kindred's Curse Saga, did those come easily to you? What, like with your law background, or was there more planning involved in the development? Where did you draw inspiration from the overall message that it brings?
That's I think just a part of me as a human being, and has always been a part of my writing. I'm very politically minded. I've always been very involved in activism and social justice movements, and that's just been a part of my life since I was a teenager. So it was kind of just a given that whatever I wrote was going to really touch on a lot of political topics. And it was something I very intentionally wanted to do and put a ton of thought into. I think it will, maybe someday I'll write a book just for fun, but I don't think I'm capable of telling a story that doesn't have some deeper message, I guess. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But for this one, I had this idea of, in science fiction, we frequently have this trope of aliens coming to our world, our human mortal world, whatever you want to call it, and how we react to that. And whether we start war with them or we, try and live together with them, whatever. It's very common in science fiction, but we don't see that a lot in fantasy, actually. And so I kind of wanted to take that trope from sci-fi and put it into fantasy and say, okay, we have these kindred, these, very magical, powerful, immortal beings who are forced out of their world. None of this is a spoiler, by the way. If you read the books, this is just backstory. They have to leave their world and they come to ours, and they are stuck here. They can't leave either. They have to make this world their home. And because they are immortal and they are magical, it creates this kind of two caste system in this world. And for me, and especially as they take power and say, okay, well, we're going to put our crowns in charge for your good, right? This is, you poor little mortals. This is for your best interest that we rule over you. And it made me think so much of just like colonialism and all of these situations we have of hundreds of years ago, the US or the UK or the French going to these places, colonizing them, saying this is for your own good, that we're in charge and that we run everything, when really they just want their taxes. And how that has, hundreds of years later, generational consequences. And even though nobody alive today was the person who did that original wrong, it's still affecting people today and those societies. And it's not an easy thing to address, because you have people who say, well, it's not my fault. I didn't do it. I just grew up here, But if you are benefiting from it, it is a little bit your fault, We all, I think, anybody who's in that system has an obligation to say, is this fair? Is this right? And if not, what are we going to do about it? So I wanted to explore those questions in a fantasy way that would hopefully allow people to, because I think if we talk about those things in the real world, people shut their brains off and say, well, I don't want to talk about that. That's politics, or, agree to disagree. And then in a fantasy world, we can be like, well, the Descended are wrong. They should never have done this. Like, how dare they treat the mortals this way? And it's like, really? Let's talk about
Tell
that.
me more. Yeah, exactly.
So my hope really was that you would have people who would get really invested in the oppression of these people and their fight for liberation, and develop a lot of sympathy for them, and take that compassion into the real world and hopefully see the world with newer eyes. What I did not anticipate happening was that it would reflect real life where people really sympathize more with the Descended and kind of have a lot of criticism for like the Guardians and some of the mortals. And that I should have seen it coming, but it took me a little bit by surprise that some of those instincts to sort of apologize for authority, even when they're very oppressive and authoritarian, that those play out into the book world as well. It's been interesting to watch. This is why I'm a Henry fan, and I will go to my grave defending him. He's my hero. He's the rebel we need. He's my freedom fighter, and I love him.
Okay. It's all so clear.
Yes.
Listen, we don't know what's gonna happen in book 4. He could do like a whole like thing and change everyone's mind. Like we don't know.
We don't know.
We'll see.
We don't know. So like
I am so curious to see everybody's reaction to what happens before. I'm so curious.
Oh, man.
If somebody doesn't want to read books that have a political or sort of activism sway, I'm not the right author for them. These are not the books for them because I'm never going to tone it down. I'm never going to soften it. I do want to present it in a way that I hope it makes people think rather than their instincts, immediately rising. I want to be very like sensitive. I'm obviously, a straight white cis woman and I have a lot of privileges. I have a lot of blind spots, even with my history and activism. Like those things are ingrained in you and you have to spend a lifetime unpacking them. So it's honestly the scenes, you're going to laugh at this, but the scenes that like Henry is in are the scenes that I lay awake at night in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking, did I do justice to this? Because he, for me, is the voice of the mortals, and he really speaks the anger and frustration of this oppressed group. And wanting to make sure that what he's saying is doing justice to groups that are facing similar situations in our world, and that those points are getting across. When he talks about how it's easy to condemn violence, but it's the only thing that people listen to. And when he talks about, well, what justifies this greater good? Like if we're saving millions of lives by ending one, is that not justified? And that's an important question to think about because that's essentially the question of war is when is war justified? How many deaths are we willing to accept in order to do something else? And so those are really the ones that cause me a lot of anxiety and stress. And I rewrite over and over and over because I want to do a good job of reflecting those really complex issues given my own limitations as a privileged person.
That's really deep. That's so deep. I love it. And, you're touching on really philosophical thinking. That is not just a simple answer. So, of course, you're going to lay awake thinking about it all.
Yeah. And I wrote myself into a corner because I have to end this series. Okay, we can't solve these problems after thousands of years of trying in the real world. And I have to do it in a book. So
you're going to do great.
Is there any scene that surprised you the most in the writing process? And what line from the series are you most proud of?
There is a scene that actually got cut that's not in the books. Every time I talk about it, I cry. So we're going to try not to cry today and try and get through it. So in the series, scars are a very big theme and an important aspect of the series. One of our MMCs, Luther, has very visible scars that kind of cut across his face. And then, other characters have more internal scars that, past trauma that really affects them and stays with them. DM, our FMC, has scars just from kind of growing up with a rough and tumble life, and she loves her scars. For her, they are the storybook of her life, and she can point to them and say, oh, that's when I got kicked by a horse, or that's when I was, climbing a tree with my brother and I fell off, etc., etc. For Luther, who has the scars across his face, his come from a very traumatic moment, and they are really a symbol both of something deeply heartbreaking for him, but also sort of the beginning of his purpose and his calling in life. And so they are very complex for him, And in the Descended world, perfection and flawlessness, quote unquote, flawlessness is prized, especially in Lumnos, where they really prioritize beauty and wealth and extravagance. For Luther, keeping his scars rather than having them healed away is an intentional choice. And he's very unique in keeping his scars. Everyone around him is like, why would you keep those? Heal them away. You'd be so much more attractive without them. They're a sign of weakness. You know, he's been made to feel like these scars are something really negative. And so when Diem bursts into his life and is like, oh no, scars are great. I love mine. Aren't they cool? Like, you know, she's so happy with hers. He doesn't know what to deal with that, you know? Yeah. And I love every scene of theirs where they talk about scars.
Me too.
And his journey with his. But there was originally a scene that was supposed to be in the series where Diem accidentally gets her scars healed away. Like she's being healed and it goes too far and they're all erased.
Oh.
And I'm gonna cry again.
Oh my God.
I couldn't do it because it's like erasing who she is. And because of things that happen in the series that I won't spoil, so much of who she is has already been taken from her and her identity has already been erased in a lot of ways, that was sort of like the last nail in the coffin of like who she knows herself to be. It would have just destroyed her in a way I wasn't ready to do to her. I have my limits even for what I'll do to my characters. And I couldn't do it. It was too sad. It was too sad to write. And I had a moment where I said to myself, am I really saying that it's too sad to write a scene where a character gets their scars healed and they have perfect, flawless skin? And that's when I realized that through the story, like I had grown in how I viewed scars, you know, and that I had begun to see them as something beautiful and worth keeping. And that flawlessness was not the ideal. It's not something that we should want. And that was not something I could have said about myself before I started writing these books. So it was a really cool moment for me to see how the books have changed me for the better as well.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
That's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Goosebumps. Oh my gosh. Who is the most underrated character, in your opinion, that you would like to give a shout out? You can't say Henry. No, that's so answer. No, you can't say Henry. Not allowed. You got other than Henry, who is maybe one of your favorite characters that you got to write, and then which one are you most similar to?
Taryn is me for sure. We are the same person. I love writing him. Every scene he's in cracks me up as if I didn't write it myself. I see myself reflected in him in so many ways. He's just, I love him. My precious little
You write a line
Taryn.
and then giggle. You write another line and giggle.
Exactly. And he's always being really inappropriate in serious situations, which I love him for, but that's also me. Yeah. So I love him for that. It's fun getting to inject little bits of humor throughout the series so that it's not quite so heavy and dark all of the time. I love him. And the character that's underrated is Henry. But if I have to pick somebody else, there's so many. I love my side characters so much. I really like the journey that Alix goes on in this series. She doesn't get a ton of, front row seating like page time. Her story's definitely more in the background, but we really see her as a descendant acknowledge the ways in which she sat in her privilege and she had the power to make change. She was very high ranking in the Royal Guard. She had the resources and the authority to make things better for the mortals, and she just didn't do it because it was easier to not look at it, to not have to deal with the people higher than her that would have fought against her. It was easier to just look away. And we see Diem kind of hold her accountable on that and criticize her for it. And I love that, to her credit, she says, you're right. I think I did. And in the times where she's not actively talking with Diem, you can tell that she's thinking about these things, because in the next conversation, she'll come back and say, well, I was thinking maybe we should do this. Maybe we could change the Royal Guard in this way. And you can just sort of see the wheels turning in her head of like, okay, I'm acknowledging my guilt and my failure to do things before. What can I do now? I love that she's really focused on what can I actively do with the resources that I have, and is trying really hard to figure that out. That journey continues for her, where she's really trying hard to be a better person than she's been in the past. Not that she was a bad person, but just a very privileged person. Like, I think anyone who has a very good heart, but looks away from the things that they don't want to see. And so I hope that she can be an inspiration to people in how she's not defensive. She's not like, no, you're wrong. I did lots. Don't be mad at me. It's not my fault. She's never defensive. She just is thoughtful. And she says, you're right. What can I do to make this better moving forward? And I really think that's the attitude that we all need to have, is not, okay, well, it's not my fault. I didn't do it, but okay, how can we fix this? It's just, I love her heart and her ethic as a person. She's great.
It was inspiring to see her subtle awakening there, as you described.
She's a great self-reflection character that people reading the book can probably relate to in the real world.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about such heavy themes, the comedy relief is everything. So you can get away with whatever you want with a Karen involved.
Exactly.
Definitely.
I think it's like really important too, and especially like in the day and age that we live in, where everything is like all these keyboard warriors and everything is so online focused, and like we've gotten away from just like having a conversation of like, here's my opinion, well, here's how I feel, and having that back and forth and learning and growing from each other. So I think kind of seeing a character like that where she's really not getting super defensive and saying, no, you're wrong, I'm right, this type of thing. It's really like, that's what we kind of need to strive as like a society to be more like, not just like in the book community, but in other communities too.
Definitely.
Well, and I think it does also touch on being able to let someone grow. And yes, they may have taken the backseat and it was easier to look away and just focus on where they were and what they knew, but to give them the grace to be able to wake up and make changes versus just saying, well, no, you believe that, so you're stuck there, and not letting them have that evolution.
Something I've really learned through my own personal journey through activism is when I was younger, for sure, I was very passionate and very quick to outrage. And how could anybody do this? How could you have this opinion? And it was very easy for me to just throw people away, block people who had different opinions or whatever. I for sure went through like 10 years of as some of people smarter than me would call it, borrowed outrage phase, where you want to be seen as, the good person. And so you get really aggressively angry at people you perceive as bad people. But all that does is further entrench them and their ideals. And it does nothing to benefit the group that you're supposed to be an ally for. It just leaves them to have those conversations on their own because you refuse to do it. And so part of my maturing and learning more has been saying, okay, it's not my place to get it. There are other people who are justified in being angry and frustrated, people who are actually affected by this stuff. But if I want to help them, I have to put my own emotions aside and I have to change hearts and minds and have those conversations and be willing to have people I disagree with talk to me. And so that is, it's something I'm still learning and working on, but trying to keep those doors of conversation open and trying to talk to them in a way that they will hear, because I know people can change. I've seen it happen so many times, but they can only change if you believe that they can change. The second you cross somebody off, that's not, you're done. And so just like you said, giving people space to change, believing that they can change. That's probably me projecting into DM a bit. That aspect is like, people can change. I truly, truly do believe it. But you have to, be willing to give them the grace to do so.
I was going to say, it's almost like a full circle moment, because you talk about the charity, the one that helps with the drugs and imprisonment.
Yeah,
it's
Buried
kind of
Alive.
Like full circle. It's like some of them might not have known. It's not even a bad misdemeanor, and it could have been something that it's like, oh, well, you made a mistake.
It's that question of, did you make good choices or did you have good choices? Like, it's easy to say, oh, you should have done this, or that was a bad decision. But a lot of these people that are in these situations, they didn't have good options. It was, this is simplifying it, but it's like steal a loaf of bread or starve to death. Like a lot of these people were in situations where they had family members to take care of, and, maybe parents or, there weren't caregivers that were really doing that. And so the only way that they could see in their world to make money is in the drug industry. And so a lot of them turn to that as a way to provide for their family. And then we want to, throw them away and throw away the key. But we don't want to solve the issues that create those situations in the first place. So I think there's a part of the book where a DM talks about how, the descendant are criticizing. In Spark, you see, there's a descendant who's saying, you treat your children so awfully. I can't believe you have orphans in your village. And she's like, seriously? You're starving us to death. Like, why do you think we have orphans to begin with? Mm-hmm. But it's very judgmental coming from the people who have a lot of privilege, because they just can't even imagine that you could be in a situation where that's the only choice that you have.
Right.
What was one of the most unexpected scenes that from the fandom, they kind of just blew this up and said, oh my God, this is like the best scene and whatnot?
Okay, so there is tiny itty bitty spoiler. There is a kiss scene at the end of Spark. There's a kiss that happens between two characters. And that was one of the last things I put in the book. It was not originally there. And I was very adamant about it not being there because I wanted it to be a very slow burn. It was supposed to be.
Give us a little bit.
It was. As my beta readers told me, they were like, please give us something. So I said, okay, fine. I will throw in this just very, quick little moment of connection. And I was really debating taking it out. And I had two different people read it. One was a beta reader, one was my husband. And they both said, oh, take it out. It's not right. The time isn't right. Take it out. And I just in my gut felt like, I don't know, I think it really does belong there actually. And I truly made a decision like the day I hit send off the draft that I almost took it out. And it is far and away the most quoted, the everybody's favorite scene in that book, the one that I see quotes pulled from the most.
And fan art.
Every special edition has like art of this one scene in it. And I'm really glad that it's there now, but it very, very almost wasn't.
I think that makes it more special.
Yeah, I do too.
It does.
Yeah, good points.
All right, so we have a fun little game for you. So kind of a play on F, Marry, Kill.
Oh dear.
We have Live in, Vacation, or Burn to the Ground, Realms Edition. So you're going to choose from the 9 realms. Okay. The mortal and descended rules do not apply in this game. So Lumnos, Fortos, Arboros, Eros, Antios, Neos, Phos, and Umbros. Which would you choose? You can only choose one for each. Live in, Vacation, or Burn to the Ground.
Okay.
Buckle up.
That's like asking her to choose like which one is her favorite child.
I know. So if mortal descendant rules don't apply, that changes my answer though, because as they are in the books, I would choose, I think, to live in Umbros, because if you've not read the books, it's the realm. It's kind of like this dark, shadowy city of sin where anything goes, very shadowy and secretive. But it's also the only place on the continent where mortals and descended live relatively as equals. You have this very small group of Umbros descended who are in charge. And then everybody else, it's just them. And then there's everyone else. And there's no special laws for who can do what other than that small group. And so you just see them living, working together, interacting, being friends, coworkers. And it's, even though it's a very sketchy place, it's also this sort of utopia a little bit of what the continent could be like if you didn't have all of these, unjust rules. So I do think I would not survive very long in Umbros, probably. But man, what a way to go. It would be so fun. Like you could just have a blast, make a lot of really interesting friends there. So that's probably what I would say to live in. Vacation in Ooh, I love a mountain vacation. So maybe Montios, like that would be fun. I don't think canonically there are any beaches in Miros, but since it's kind of the water, like ship people, if there were beaches, I might say that one too. And then burn to the ground. That is a loaded question. Scared to answer. You know what? I got to change my answer because I think I would burn Montios to the ground because while the landscape is beautiful, the people are problematic.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it there.
They're just a little problematic.
So with Igneos, like, let's be real, but there's another side to Igneos that you have not seen yet that I have. So I'm going to reserve them for
exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. All right. So, as an animal lover myself, I want to know where the inspiration from Sarai and the Gryverns came from, and then which animal, real or fictional, do you most identify with?
So I love an animal sidekick. Love.
Yes.
But I want to do something different because if you do dragons, that people have a lot of preconceived notions about dragons and how they act and, you know, what they do. And I wanted a clean slate. I wanted to create this character with their own lore and, you know, quirks. So I said, okay, well, what's dragons but different? And I thought, I was looking at lists of mythical creatures and, you know, could I pick one of them or do I want to do my own thing? And I thought I love the idea of a creature that is sort of, you know, king of land, air, and sea all kind of in one. And I said, how can we sort of tweak this to have like aspects of each of those areas? And so that was the idea behind Sarai. And also, you know, I called it a Gryvern. It's half dragon, half, you know, wyvern. And so that was, half griffin, half wyvern. And so that's the inspiration for the name Gryvern. And I thought, okay, well, this at least will help people visualize what she looks like, hopefully. But because it's neither griffin nor dragon or anything else, maybe that'll allow them to have a clean slate of like, what are these animals like? But I love them. I love writing them so much.
We need more Sarai time.
Yes.
Be careful what you wish for. Well, you will see a lot more of all of the Gryverns in the last book. You will see much more of all of them, for sure.
I was whole ass about to be like, let's get a little novel. Like, oh, never mind.
You will definitely get more of their story for sure. And then what animal am I most like? I'm definitely a cat person.
Kitty cat.
Yeah. I think I have had dogs and cats. I love them both.
Yeah, of course.
My favorite animal is a fox. The animal I'm most associated with is a possum. Because I love all trash adjacent creatures. Just they need more love, honestly.
Yeah,
for sure.
But I'm probably most like a cat.
Wish I could all day.
Honestly,
yeah.
I would. I absolutely would. I do sometimes.
I love my kitty cat.
Food just set in front of me, and then I won't let you pet me unless I'm in the mood for it. But
Yeah, they're boss.
Not
They're
today.
boss.
Perfect.
I know that you've touched on a few things that have been very memorable, but what can you speak to while you were finishing up Burn? What was just this overall feeling that you had about the series as a whole?
Man, writing Burn has been super emotional for a lot of reasons. My life has changed so dramatically. My, career has changed quite a bit. How many people simply know that I exist has changed astronomically. It's been a big learning curve with the business side of publishing, but also just having so many people have opinions on everything I do has been a big adjustment that has taken some getting used to. And also writing a final book in a series, I've never, ever done anything like that before. And I was not prepared for how difficult it would be and how much it would be very different from anything else I've ever written. so emotional in knowing I'm saying goodbye to the characters. I truly think I have cried every day writing this book, every single day. And not always because something bad is happening to the characters, just because I know like this is the end and they're all kind of in a bad place at the end of book 3. So, they're still in a bad place and trying to, claw their way out of it. Just been a really big process, emotional journey for sure of writing it. I've learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about the world. I have, developed skills that I never thought I would have. Yeah, it's just
Have
been...
you started writing anything else since
No.
then? No, not yet.
I am fully 1000% focused on Burn.
The end.
And I'm not allowing myself to turn my attention to anything else until that is like done and out in the world. And then I'll probably take a few months off.
Good, you deserve it.
Check out for like 3 months. You won't hear from me. I'll be on a beach somewhere, with a pina colada in my hand.
Good for you.
Travel to a tropical island and just relax.
Exactly. And read a lot of books. I really want to read a lot of books.
That. You'll have to tell us what you're reading next time we have you on.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yes. My brain against my will is starting to plot new things. And like when I lay in bed at night, it's starting to be like, wouldn't it be cool if we wrote this? I'm like, no, we're not thinking about that right now. We're only thinking about Burn. So I do have a sense of what I might write next, but I'm really not letting myself make any decisions until I'm there, and we'll see how I feel once we get there. But it will be romantasy, and it will be similar vibes to this.
Penn Cole,
we are here for it.
Well,
absolutely. We have another little game for you, a little this or that, just one word, quick, whatever comes to your mind first.
Okay.
All right, we're going to kick it off with cozy cabin or tropical beach.
Cozy cabin.
Background noise or silence?
Such a sociopath, but silence. It can be, but I get distracted so easily. So if there's anything on in the background, I'll become fixated on it.
Visual read or audio read?
Visual. I can't do audiobooks. I love my narrator. I've never listened to any of my audio. I cannot do it. Really? She's great. I adore her. I hear she does a fantastic job. But
she does a fantastic job.
Do plotter or pantser?
Heavy plotter. I'm as far to the plotting extreme on the spectrum as you can get.
Character growth or plot twist?
Character growth.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. So much coffee.
Yes. Pen and paper or keyboard?
That's tough. Keyboard, because I'm all about efficiency. But there's something romantic and magical about pen and paper, too.
A good pen.
Yeah. Yes. If I wasn't trying to knock out as many words as I could, pen and paper for sure.
Bookmarks or page folds?
Page folds. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I will go to my grave on this hill. Books are meant to be loved on and used. When somebody brings me a copy of my books that's like coffee stained and the cover's half ripped, and I can tell that this thing has been loved and thrown in a bag and carried around, like that brings joy to my heart. It makes me so much happier than like a pristine, perfect.
So I need to mess these up a little bit.
Shelf. Yeah. Throw around, dent them, rip the pages. No, I love seeing a book that's been well loved. It's just very romantic.
Wow.
Okay. Beautiful way of looking at it. Hardcover or paperback?
So I'm an ebook girl.
Okay.
I guess hardcover.
Fan art or cosplay?
Oh, trying to get me in trouble. That's so tough. I'm surprised that I'm saying this, but cosplay, because I have loved seeing people envision themselves as characters, like people of all different, races and body types and, everything, envision themselves as the characters. And that makes me so happy that people can feel represented by a character and, put on the mantle of that character. And it can be such a diverse spectrum. Whereas fan art, it tends to be like the characters usually represented in the same way always. But I love how inclusive cosplay can be.
Another great answer.
Slow burn or fated mates?
Slow burn, please.
Yeah.
I'm sure someday I will write a fated mates story, but I kind of don't like fated mates because it feels like if the choosing was done for you, it's not as romantic as if you, like in my world, you choose your mate. And I think that's more romantic, personally.
I said this like a couple weeks ago. We had a whole discussion on this. I just feel like fated mates is so overdone in a sense.
Yeah.
It's in everything, and it's like, but now I know at the beginning in the first chapter who they're gonna end up with. It kind of takes away from like
Some of the
nuance
fun.
of the story almost sometimes.
What I really love though, and I want to write this someday, is a rejected fated mates where the universe put them together and they're like, nope, I will do not choose you. And they eventually choose each other again. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's really cool. Because I love the angst of like the universe is trying to pull them together and they're like fighting against it. But ultimately, you still have them making the choice at the end of the day.
That's the fated mates for you. I love that.
So is that fated mates meets enemies to lovers at the same time?
Yes, absolutely.
It depends on how it would. Zodiac Academy has a great version of that, and that's one of the reasons why I love it.
How do they?
Bro, that is one of my favorite arcs in any series. Like, it's one of my favorite bits of literature. Is that entire arc? We won't say who it is. But the characters that it happens to and everything that follows for them after, inject it into my veins. I love it so
I remember reading it the first time and I was like, I hate this. Why? And then I was like, but actually I don't. I love it. I'm eating it up now. I'm like, oh my God, it's so good.
Oh my God. The angst, the yearning, the pain.
It
was so good. I want to write.
If you would like to write this, we will read it.
I really want to. I absolutely want to write something that evokes that same emotional feeling that I got reading that whole arc.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right. TV show or movie?
TV show.
TV show.
I have no patience for movies. I can't do it. I feel trapped. I can't move. I'm stuck.
Especially if you go to like a movie theater, you're like,
no, I can't do it. I can't do it. My husband and I can't even make it through like a 30-minute TV show without pausing 80 times. Be like, look at this thing I saw. Or, oh, did you remember this? So movies, no, we can't do it. We are the TikTok generation. Our attention span is ruined.
Yeah. Fantasy or romance?
How can you ask me this?
Why choose is an acceptable answer.
That is very much an acceptable answer.
My ideal book is exactly 50% of each. But if I could only choose, it's hard because in my mind, which I know this is wrong, but I grew up with fantasy being male dominated and it was like all male characters written by men. And I know it has changed since then, but I still in my head think of fantasy as just like men doing men things for men.
You need to unlearn this.
I know. And so that's why I love Romantasy, because it feels like fantasy for women. You know, it feels like, you know, we still get all of those amazing worlds and magic and, you know, big adventures, but we also get like romance, which I love. So I think I'd probably choose romance, I guess.
By like 0.01%. Like,
but yeah, I would much rather read a Romantasy.
All right. So just kind of wrapping it up here, can you share anything from 2026 that you're looking forward to, in addition to, of course, Burn? Like, what is next for Penn Cole?
I very intentionally have not put anything on my calendar for 2026. I've kept it wide open because I think I need a break, number one. I might take a year to just sort of like recover and you know.
Well earned.
Very well earned.
Fall back in love with writing, I think. Not that I've fallen out of it, but my happiest time in my life was in the period before I published, where I was just writing. And that's all I did all day long was write. And I want to reconnect with that side of me and get back to that. And so I'm really excited to just take some time to hopefully write my next series and just dive deep into whatever my next world is. But I know that when Burn comes out, we're planning a really big, like 2-week, you know, multi-country tour. And so I'll be really, really excited to get that book out
Yeah.
and to hear everybody's thoughts on the ending and for us to really celebrate the end of this era together.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yay.
Then for anyone that doesn't know, where can they follow you or stay up to date with all things Penn Cole?
My website is penncole.com. I am at author Penn Cole on all social media platforms. I'm most active on Instagram, definitely.
Mhm.
I also have a Discord, a reader group,
Yes.
Pen Pals, that is linked on my website and all my social media. It is where I am every single day. And we get unhinged in our discussions. It's a very fun place. So those are where I spend most of my time. And Threads, but I need to get off Threads. I really gotta quit Threads.
Threads got really toxic really fast,
bad
unfortunately.
place.
I don't know what
It
happened.
did. I know.
Sad.
We're trying to inject a little bit more positivity into it, but it's not taking very well.
It is
We'll
not.
see.
Well, I have to
It'll just
join.
need to-
I have to join your Discord. I haven't done
It's
that
really
yet.
fun.
oh yeah, I'm on there.
It's
Yeah.
very unhinged.
Yeah.
Penn, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. We look forward to seeing what's next for you. We hope you all enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Next up on Sunshine Ladies Unraveling Tales, we'll be chatting with author Amelia J. See you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.